After transitioning from the corporate world to real estate, Whitney Ward found herself heading multifamily real estate sales in the office of a nationally known brokerage firm. In pursuit of more challenges and unlimited growth, Whitney decided to open her own commercial brokerage firm that focuses mainly on multifamily property management and sales, where she offers investors a full-service alternative, including deal sourcing, due diligence, business plan implementation, asset management, and divestment. In this episode, Whitney shares with us how she developed a business that is adaptable, flexible, and can operate virtually. All right. Well, welcome back to another episode. Today we have Whitney Ward joining us. Whitney Ward, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So why don't we go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, so I actually come from a corporate background. Real estate is, a lot of people have like family that have started in the real estate and they sort of follow that path. I'm the first to really lead that path and for my family. And I started out of college in corporate America. I went to George Mason, graduated in 2008, and went into your bigger corporate companies like Enterprise, Coca-Cola. I stayed with them for 2.5 years, and Enterprise at 2.5 years, and then Coca-Cola for 5 years. And it was great. I moved up fast. I was very aggressive and competitive in corporate sales and marketing. And but I just quickly found that the growth that I was having wasn't fast enough. I felt like, for me, as soon as I get challenged, it's good. But then once I conquer whatever it is that the challenge is, then I'm ready for the next one, right? And in corporate, it's more, you're waiting for your opportunity based on leadership and when they think you're ready. So during that time, Coca-Cola was actually my last job and actually got me to move to Atlanta. During that time, I started reading a lot of books and studying, started learning about cash flow and financial freedom, and everything pointed towards real estate. Obviously, the most millionaires are made in real estate or have invested in real estate. So for me, that was the route. And so what I did, because I didn't know where to start, I got my real estate license. And worked in real estate sales, ended up leaving Coca-Cola to go full-time in real estate about 4 or 5 years ago. And I just thought, hey, I'm going to come into this game and I'm going to make so much money and I'm going to be, $1 million listing, agent. And you learn quickly that's not the business. I would say real estate is probably the hardest thing besides playing Division I basketball for George Mason. I think being in real estate as a professional full-time is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. There's a ton of agents. And so that's what actually, I initially started in residential real estate. The first year and a half, 2 years, I worked with, your residential investors and did your typical buyer seller deals. And I just, I love working with investors. I am more of an analytical person. So for me, it was like the investors knew what they wanted. If the numbers worked, that's what we were doing. So then I started shifting, met a good friend of mine. At the time I was with KW Commercial. He was the leading commercial broker in the office. Him and I just kicked it off. He wrestled in college. So we sort of had that collegiate level relationship in common. And he kind of big brother, little sistered me onto the commercial side at KW Commercial. And then that's when, at the time, I started moving into the multifamily space through reading and through self-education. I learned, in my opinion, I liked that asset type better than any other asset type. It made sense. It felt somewhat recession-proof. I mean, until we have the situation we have now, it could be the worst it could ever been. But prior to that, I just felt like it was something that made sense to me. So I ended up working really hard and positioning myself with KW Commercial as the lead multifamily agent for the office. And after about 2 years with them, I went and left and opened my own commercial real estate brokerage where we focus in multifamily sales and property management. So And that's sort of how that evolution in a quick summary happened. But it was a lot of self-education and a lot of I guess coming to reality on what would really build my wealth and what would really challenge me and grow me. And so that's how I propelled into where I'm at today.
And so you just mentioned that you started your own brokerage firm. And so you're specializing in multifamily sales and property management. So are you also investing as well, like alongside?
So initially for our brokerage, we are looking for deal making activities. So right now we are not investing, and that's simply because there's sort of that conflict of interest, right? So we're providing third party property management services, and I'm doing brokering deals for investors or sellers. I don't also want to be their competition right now. So for us right now, our goal is to do deal making activities, limit that conflict of interest, be more of an ally to our clients, and provide them services as we grow. Of course, if there's an opportunity with us already having the property management and asset management in our space, like we'll take down a deal. But I think that's more, a year, 2 years down the line. Right now, we're more focused on assisting our clients, and that just comes back to, I don't know if you read the book Gene Trowbridge or by Gene Trowbridge. It's a whole new business. He talks a lot about that, and that was sort of what shifted me completely into making our brokerage a deal making firm. So yeah.
So let's hone in on the property management aspect, because I'm sure a lot of people would be really curious to know. So why choose property management rather than
Sure.
just only sales?
Yeah, so I actually, the whole reason I left KW Commercial was because I just felt like I was another broker, right? How do you separate yourself from all your competition if you're just another broker, right? So I had a really good partner of mine. I'm actually, she's our senior portfolio manager, and she came from the property management background, doing HOA representation, and then managing actual apartment communities. So we teamed up, and I felt like, adding that property management and asset management allowed us to sort of work with buyers as well as sellers. So traditionally on the apartment side of the brokerage business, you just represent the seller. If you have the listing, you're a winner, right? But if you don't have the listing, you sort of are just this broker in space trying to put together a deal that you don't even have control over. So the property management allowed us to come in, support the buyers, because there are a lot of buyers that come to some of my listings that don't have property management, would ask me, do I know a property management company? They needed help in that due diligence space, underwriting, not just underwriting, but lease audits, unit walks, and some of the operational perspective. So for me, it just made sense. It just, not too many other brokerages have the property management. There are some, they're larger, and I saw what they were doing, and I just thought, from a business structure and strategy and providing value to clients, this would be sort of a good way to get in and keep us in a position to vertically integrate and grow.
So how does your firm go about approaching this idea or concept of property management? So what is your I guess the overarching view of like what makes a really good property management firm or property manager?
Sure. So our company name is Intuitive Management Partners. You won't, as you can tell from the name, we push the management side more than we push the brokerage side. So the idea for us is really to come in and work with the buyer throughout the entire cycle of the investment. So we want to be the person that essentially maybe finds the deal for the buyer and says, here's an opportunity, and already know operationally where the opportunities lie. So then we partner with that buyer, help them through the due diligence. They acquire the asset. We come on, transition on, and then we do whatever it is that implements their business goal or business strategy for that property. And then hopefully the idea is, as we grow their business strategy for that property, now we're in a position to help them exit that property, right? So then here I come, I can sell that asset. And so for us, what we do that's a little bit more unique, so we have our senior portfolio manager. She oversees the properties, but we actually have on-site property management. And those individuals are virtual and they're also licensed. So we do it a little bit different because some of the larger companies, they have unlicensed people on site. We thought by having sort of, your licensed agents, it helps agents who might be newer to the business, aren't making a lot of money, come in and learn a different real estate asset type. And then also it sort of provides a different level of service. Obviously every real estate agent isn't, the best in the world, but there's classes and there's requirements and there's ethics and there's license law that they have to abide by. And it elevates that standard in my opinion.
So you said that the property managers, so you guys have them in place, and these are all licensed agents. So are they salaried or commission or like combination of both, or how does that work?
So they're a combination of both. So it's based on the property. So obviously a 22 unit property, you're going to have one manager and a maintenance professional. And ideally what we try to do is something that small, we would try to have a maintenance professional that also could manage, so that you have all one encompassed one person, right? So it just depends on, in something larger, 100 units, we probably will have 2 managers on site. And I say on site loosely because we schedule by appointment. And we've now completely shifted to that because of COVID-19 and seeing some of the opportunities there. And we're on a leadership call every Friday with some of the top managers in our market in Atlanta. So you got, from First Communities to in Portland, all these guys are on this call. And one of the things that, I got from the call was, how do we evolve now that, we see what could happen? I mean, clearly this is worst case scenario, right? But like, what could happen if worst case scenario happens? How can we eliminate or minimize disruption? And so we just felt like there's an opportunity if we can find less managers to manage a property and do it more virtually. Now, not only do we save the owner from a salary payroll standpoint, but we also run the property more efficient to what we feel is best. So to answer your question, it's a combination of both.
And it's interesting you said that because actually when I lived in New York, I worked in property management as well. And I remember like our community, it was owned by Archstone at the time. And we had about 200, I think it was like 260 residents in that building. And, we have like the sales associate, basically, you've got the ACM, the CM, and to be honest, I mean, the CM was there, but not really there,
Right.
So it on this point of virtual and even the cost savings and things, the implications behind that. I mean, just how far could we take this property management, being a virtual component rather than physical?
Sure. I mean, it's tricky because it'd be nice if I should have my senior portfolio manager on here too, because she's actually lived the day-to-day operations. And so my perspective is more investor, analytical, savings. And she's like, wait a minute, Whitney, the reality is we still need to operate. This is still a people's business. So you have to still have staff, and I'm trying to cut everything. But to answer your question, I personally think the reality of being virtual exists. Of course, you still have to have that people touch, but if you, just like teaching residents how to pay their rent online, that was a little bit of an adjustment for a while. Not everybody wanted to do it. And then, but when just like any type of technology, cars now, you don't have CD players in cars, in the newer cars anymore. So you have to adapt. And I think that's the big thing, is just creating a business structure and implementing it, and that be the adaptation for the residents. I still think you have those personal touches through appointments. If someone comes, tours a property virtually online and they call us and they say, we're interested in this unit, then we schedule an appointment, and then there's your personal touch with that property manager. And then, when I say more virtual and technology, I mean more we're considering attacking from a maintenance perspective, identifying opportunities to use technology that would anticipate major maintenance concerns. Because the reality is, maintenance is usually the resident's number one reason they reach out to a property manager anyway. All the other paperwork, renewals and lease ups, all that can be done virtually. You can sign a document for them to sign. They can read it, sign it, send it back, and you have your files. It's really the maintenance side of the piece. If you figure out what type of technology systems to combine with, that could really save money at the end. So that's sort of when I say virtual and technology. Virtual meaning how we transmit documents and maybe schedule appointments online, but technology being sort of this maintenance strategy that we can implement to sort of do some preventative maintenance or anticipate some concerns and have our maintenance staff go out and maybe update or address issues all at once versus continuously coming back.
So that would require a lot of data and, being able to collect the data then, right? Essentially, right?
Sort of, yeah. And there's some unique systems out there. One of the companies we're working with right now, they're, and you might have heard of them, Lateral. I like their strategy because they are sort of your maintenance staff all in one. But what they do is a lot of it is directly with the resident over the phone. So the way they're set up is they're only dispatching a maintenance technician if it's in an absolute emergency. And I think a lot of times with the larger properties and the larger management companies, you have that maintenance staff just on site all the time, and they might not be doing something all the time, and sort of you're spending money. Now, granted, larger properties have a lot more going on, but here's where we prefer coming in with the buyer at the time of acquisitions, because if you can do a maintenance and risk management audit up front and then set up scheduled maintenance visits or audits, however you want to call it, then you can sort of anticipate and prevent a lot of issues coming down the line. And so, that's sort of our strategy to try to minimize those costs. A lot of the work comes up front. Owners might have to pay a little bit extra up front, but then if you're holding for 3, 5, 7 years, now we've been able to prevent some of these expensive costs that might come down the line. So that's what I mean. And there's some companies out there that are looking at really being able to collect data and determine when like an HVAC is going to, explode or whatever. But those are they're still in their beta testing and they don't have all those facts. So, we're not super fancy yet, but if we were to find that technology company or whatever that we could work together with, that's where I think we're headed towards in the future.
Yeah, that really sounds like quite an interesting idea and perspective, because in retrospect, when I think about it, we had quite a number of people in our building, and especially the maintenance staff. And it's not like they were doing anything, something every single day. Right. Granted, we had a superintendent, and I think there were probably like 6 others under him, maintenance guys that were under him, and really, really nice guys, loved them. And the one thing though I did notice was like they had excellent relationships with our residents. They knew all the residents by first name, and anytime there was something that came up, we usually kind of addressed it within like a couple hours.
Sure.
Which was, that was actually part of the whole, like, I guess, value that the property management company brought, was that we had a guarantee. It was a 24-hour service guarantee where we would respond to any service request within 24 hours. And I don't know, I just thought that was one thing that really stood out to me with that company at the time versus some of the other experiences that I've had in the past. But I'm just really thinking about like what you're saying and the implications of that. So, because it almost felt as though like having the people there was community. There was that sense of community. Now I'm just thinking and trying to envision, now what if we reduced that and took them away? What would that look like? That whole community aspect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the good and the bad of technology, right?
Hmm.
So, we all have phones now, and we used to like actually talk to one another, or you know what I mean? Like, and now you're in an elevator and everyone's down looking at their phone. I don't think when I say that we're looking at tech and we're looking at ways to minimize costs. I don't mean completely eliminating that touch. I think something that we talked about with my senior portfolio manager is still having those community events, still having those, obviously you're still going to have appointments set with your with new leases and with renewals and everything like that. I still think you have those elements of touch, but personally, I've used to live in apartments. I own my house now, but you know, from my experience when I lived in apartments, all I talked to the staff for was like if I needed maintenance or to pay rent. And I was one of those people that like literally brought my rent check to the leasing office. And when they said pay online, I was like, no, like you're going to take my lease check, And then they were like, no, we're not going to take your lease check. And so for me, then I realized, okay, I'm paying online. And then you're right. I never really came to the leasing office after that. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're servicing people for where they live. Uh, in my opinion, there probably are some people that want to just be friends with the leasing team and the maintenance staff, but majority of people just want to come home, hang out with their friends, go to sleep, eat, that's where they live. They don't really care about, sort of having that necessary connection with the leasing staff and the maintenance staff. So that's been from my experience and just sort of talking to different residents. And of course you're going to have some people that are going to miss the old way. I think that's just sort of what happens, but I think when it comes down to picking your apartment that you're going to be at, it's going to be the apartment that addresses your needs the quickest, like you said, with the maintenance, and then that have the least maintenance issues, and have sort of the amenities and the location that you're looking for. So that's what I believe.
I think to another thing, just to kind of piggyback off of what you said in your experience, was maybe it could just be the type of asset, the type of multifamily property. Like in New York, those are high rises, right? So it's like you're walking by that desk every single day, and you're walking
Mm-hmm.
by the office. And then I mean, I don't know, maybe was your community like kind of garden style?
Yeah, so most of the
Okay.
communities in Georgia are garden, unless you're like right in Buckhead or Midtown. And to your point, you're right. You're able to
Mhm.
access your apartment building without even seeing maintenance or leasing
Mhm.
staff.
Yeah. So then maybe, I mean, so maybe that probably isn't even an element that we would see in other parts of the country then. Maybe that could
Sure.
just
Yeah,
be, yeah, to
that's a
that
good point.
particular
Yeah,
market. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay. And now another thing that you mentioned too was you mentioned virtual showings, or like it was virtual showings, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of management companies are already doing virtual showings. I don't know if you've ever, searched on apartments.com or something like that and looked at an apartment you were interested in, and you could kind of tour it. Some of them have sort of a layout that you could tour. But when we say virtual showings, we're actually literally you can walk through that unit, right? Physically see that unit from your computer at home. And a lot of times, especially in the apartment space, you will get residents that might actually lease a unit without ever even going to it because it's in the right location, it's the right price, blah, 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 blah. So the virtual showings is starting to be something that a lot of management companies are shifting to. And that's sort of a response to COVID-19. I think, I don't, when COVID-19 is over, we're going to probably go back to reality that we've been used to. And a lot of the dramatics that we've all thought were going to change might not even happen. Right. So I'm not here to try to put that in the air, but I do think what this has taught us is let's find ways to be the most efficient. And even on the residential real estate space, they're starting to do virtual showings, virtual open houses. So it's going to cut down on the amount of times or amount of showings that a potential resident or prospect would need to pick their apartment. So I kind of like it. It'll just be interesting to see the response from residents and tenants. And I think right now, the most important thing would be as you shift and implement new strategies is keeping track through surveys and seeing is this working? Do your residents like this? Do prospects like this? And adapting to that. Because at the end of the day, you mentioned it earlier, this still is, that connection, people, business type of reality that we live in. And that's what we have to care about. So I think we can all come up with ideas, but it really is going to come down to what are the residents comfortable with too at the same time. So, but I do like that idea. And I think even, and the reality is a lot of people they're not going to feel comfortable maybe touring a whole bunch of properties right away, with everything with COVID-19 and everything. So I think you're going to see more increased people looking at virtual showings and then already have an idea of what the units look like and where they want to live.
Yeah, and there would definitely need to have some sort, like you said, you'd want to get an idea of like the response that people are going to have, because I'm thinking about like just the overall tracking and everything of this. Like you track your leads, your lead generation, your funnel system and everything. Like for us at the time, I mean, it was like old school. That was in 2008. So, but we had these little binders, right? And in the binder, it was like you get a new lead and like you track everything in the binder, and then it had like at the bottom of the binder, for like
you were real old school
and everything. That was, I'm telling you, and it did not go into the system until I think it was until after they said yes, they wanted to lease. That's when we put it in the system. I mean,
Gotcha.
we tracked everything by hand. But yeah, and I'm just thinking, so that was the lead calling in, right? Mm-hmm. Or sending us an email or something along those lines. We get on the phone, talk to them, do that whole follow-up process and everything. But they actually, to see the apartment, they had to come. Now I'm thinking like what you're saying, you go online now and they have this interface and they could actually just tour the apartment right then and there, right? So, mm-hmm. I'm just trying to imagine or picture what this whole tracking system would be like, because one of the things that I found, like you said, is that personal connection. Maybe, the community is not at the top of the list just from looking at the pictures alone, but they really like the staff. Mm-hmm. And so they just decide, hey, I really like these people. They're really nice. So I want to live here.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's that side, but then there's also the side where I don't know where I want to live. Let me at least see what the unit looks like. And mm-hmm. there's the frustration that you can't, some communities don't have that access. So it's like, man, I don't know if I want to live there. What does it look like? And then, mm-hmm. And I agree with you. I see where you're going. You're saying, there's that lead source that you might be missing out on. I think, again, that's the good and the bad of technology. I think by providing people, now they're not going to see the whole apartment. They're just going to see the unit. So they're going to get to see what potentially a unit that they want to rent looks like. They still are, you're still going to have those people that are going to call. You're going to still have those people that are going to say, I'm interested in this unit. I saw it online. I want to schedule a tour. And then that's when you schedule a tour with our staff and you get that one-on-one piece, and we don't have a tracking system where we're handwriting right anymore. So we do use Yardi Matrix and have the capability of tracking our leads and can follow up with those leads. And that's what I think overall it's going to be a good thing for our business. I think letting people see potentially what they're looking at. I mean, because also Atlanta is not only just a hub of people that just live here and look for apartments. You have a lot of people that move down here and they want to kind of see potentially what they're getting into before they come down here because they have no idea where they want to live, right? So I think that's just another way of marketing and advertising that you can do outside of just having your flag outside your apartment building and hoping they drive by and come in.
So where do you see the scalability of this type of a model? So rather than, like we've seen in the past, you have maybe, one community manager, assistant, et cetera, for one community. So mm-hmm. how many communities do you see that a property manager could realistically manage and handle?
Well, it depends on the unit. So you could probably have about 1 to 2 every 100 units. And for us, and I'm just speaking for our business strategy, one of the things that we're not looking to be some enormous third party management company. We're very selective on who we partner with for properties we're going to manage, and that's not just the property. It's so much as the owner operator. We want to make sure they're well capitalized, have good partnerships, and can actually do the business strategy that they're considering doing for that property, and they're capitalized to do it. So we're not looking to be some gigantic company. That's not, we also have the sales side. That's our lead revenue generation. There's only like a 12% margin in the third party management world. So our ultimate goal is really just to build our firm, have a solid foundation, a portfolio under management, and then eventually move into maybe acquisitions on our, with other partners, or expanding into development. So from our personal perspective, it's not necessarily having so many property management or property managers coming in and having this large portfolio of third-party management properties that we manage. But it's more, let's slowly grow and then get to a point where now we may acquire and in-house manage. So that's our scalability and strategy that might be a little different than someone else.
So you just mentioned that when you're vetting kind of these owner operators, right? So what exactly are you looking for in these types of individuals?
Well, the main thing is obviously we want to see that they understand what they're getting into. Had they have history of investing? We're a little bit more open to investing with new investors, but who is your partner? So if it's you and two other guys, well, like which one is a sponsor? Which one has experience? Have you figured out or sourced debt or equity? So that's for me. I usually vet them. Just from my background in the sales side and dispositions, I'm able to come in and sort of identify immediately if we have a potential buyer that could actually take down a deal. And then the other thing is relationships. Honestly, we talked about this pretty much this entire podcast. It's the relationships. I have some buyers that have called me for deals that I've had in the past, and they try to build a relationship, but they only call me one time and we never talk again. And then I have buyers that I talk to constantly, at least couple times a month, and those are the people that I think about right away when I have a deal or there's an opportunity. So, if I was going to give advice or say anything, it would be definitely, have your deal team together, know, sort of what your range is from an acquisition standpoint. Are you middle market? Are you less? Figure that out. And then, also identify, what your business strategy is going to be. And then that sort of lets us know, okay, we're dealing with a group of operators that know what they're doing, can execute on a business plan, and we can feel confident that when we manage their asset, they're going to have the capital and the capabilities to execute. So, yeah.
So what would be a pretty good piece of reading material you'd suggest?
So I mentioned it earlier, Gene Trowbridge, It's a Whole New Business. I thought that book was phenomenal. It took me, I had to read it twice because it's a very attorney litigating standpoint. I mean, it's a textbook. But right now I am actually reading I just finished reading Adapt by Blaine Strickland. It's a commercial real estate book that just talks about disruption and in things that you have to be aware of. So it gave a lot of examples about, how technology has disrupted us. I made the example earlier. I was one of those people that had CDs in my car. Like literally, I just bought a new car this year and I was like, where's the CD player? And I had to get rid of all of my good CDs and then stream my music, which for me was a disruption because I like to see what sometimes I want to listen to. Sometimes I don't automatically know what artists I want to listen to. So with streaming, you got to kind of, what do I want to listen to, So, and that's what the book talks about. It's about being aware of potential disruption to your business, whether that's COVID-19, whether that's a big player in the business that is acquiring another company that might disrupt your business. And I thought it was phenomenal. I literally read it in like a day because it opened up my eyes to seeing opportunities just within my business. So those are two books. I mean, I could go on, but those are two good books that I think someone would find interesting.
I know that feeling, getting into the car and it's like, oh, where's the CD player, right?
I mean, our listeners are going to think we're old. I promise you, I'm not that old. I'm a millennial still.
It happened to me a few years ago, and I got in the car. I'm like, where's the CD player? You know? Oh my goodness. Anyways, so how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, you guys can reach me. I'm on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. It's Intuitive Management Partners. If you want to contact us directly, it's info@intuitivemp.com. You can also call us 678-784-4022.
Well, thank you so much, Whitney, for joining us. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
All right.